And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wartburg Infusion Entertainment Review. It's episode number 26. I'm your host, Thomas, aka Mr. Wartburg, and alongside me, as always, is my co host, Patrick, aka Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations, everybody.
We've got an awesome week of mostly streaming TV stuff to talk about this week. Of course, Fusion's like maybe the most anticipated show ever, as we've talked about on this show before. Why the Last Man premiered a week ago from this past Monday. So episodes 1 through 4 are now out on Hulu. We're going to be talking Ted Lasso. We're 2 episodes from the finale. Titans season 3, similarly around close to the finale. I can't remember how many episodes there are. And also going to talk maybe potentially some Matrix stuff with, since I rewatched The Matrix. We have the Resurrections trailer. And of course, Doom Patrol season 3 premiered yesterday for the first 3 episodes. So Fusion, it's been a couple of weeks since we did our big 1-year anniversary show. We did our top 5 favorite games with
Oh
Chloe
yeah,
and Jackie, which was an absolute blast. One of my favorite
that was
streams of the
great.
year. I
That
loved
was
that.
great. Yeah.
And I already have ideas for what we're going to do for our next big milestone one. I'm thinking that one might be TV shows and or movies. One of the two.
Okay. I like that. I like it.
Yeah. Do maybe to keep that to like the big guest evergreen. Like actually have a whole list. We should do a sit down meeting of like, here's some ideas. Because I'm pretty excited about like I had some ideas. I'm like, man, we could do some cool fucking shit. But
Nice.
since it's been 2 weeks, what have you been up to? I know you said last episode that you were starting or gearing up to start doing some role playing with Red Dead multiplayer. Where you at with all that?
Yeah, first off, it's the PRC, the People's Roleplay Community that hosts the server. Red M is the product where they put it on. 5M is where they put the GTA online world. Red M is kind of the Red Dead Redemption one. And so there are a couple of them out there that are growing servers. This one's a smaller one. There's 64 players in there, but yeah, man, I have spent probably a week now on the server, and I will tell you, it's been a blast. I haven't streamed mostly because this is my first attempt at like hardcore role playing, from start to finish. I did some of it in World of Warcraft a long time ago, but it was very, how are you going to get into the period of Azeroth, like the lingo, like it just really like you can be yourself or create a character and kind of thrive in there, but like language and communication's kind of weird because you're basing it off of mythical lore, whereas like Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto, there's a setting like a real world setting that's the backdrop. So yeah, man, I've been doing a lot of grinding to earn a little cash, but I will tell you some good storytelling, man. That's the great thing about this one versus GTA. GTA, so much more. A lot of the fans that watch those streams out there, they're really focused on like bank robberies, things like that, like robberies, heist, people making money. Racing is a big thing in those worlds. Red Dead is a little different because it's the Old West. You don't have that. I mean, you do have bank robberies, but they don't happen very often. And so you have to really start focus on your storytelling. You really do. You have to focus on character generation, storytelling, and it's been fun. I've been slowly, making my way through getting to know the people on this server, their characters, and kind of pushing towards a little bit of a drama that's taking place over the next couple of weeks with somebody I know, a streamer out there that I'm a big fan of. That I like his characters in both GTA and Red Dead, and he's actually, just kind of short story, running for sheriff in a little town in Rhodes. I don't know if you remember the
Oh
Red
yeah,
Dead map. Okay, he's petitioning for campaigning to be sheriff in Rhodes to replace another person, and there's a whole lot of backdrop, like drama that happens with gangs and rival businesses in the community. So it's kind of fun just being a part of that stuff, man. It's fun, It's a little different from what I'm used to, because it's like an MMO, but then this time you have to remain in character as soon as you jump on the server. So it's been fun, man. Yeah, doing
cool.
that. Watched the stuff we're about to talk about. Also watched and I'm going to drop a show in here because I think it's one of the better written shows on Netflix in terms of like just storytelling, and that's Sex Education. Got to watch that,
Been
man.
meaning to get started on that.
You need to watch it because I will tell you, it's fucking hilarious. It's got that, the British snark, just like Ted Lasso, that, they Americanized it just enough to where you don't feel like you're completely lost with everything over there. But the characters, the actors, everything's great about the show. Of course, it's a raunchy comedy, because it's called Sex Education. It's in high school, that whole thing. But I mean, you find yourself really pulled into the character development of it's not just the teenagers having sex that you're pulled into their personalities and their stories, the adults that are around these kids as well. There's a big story that takes place with them as well, and it's really good. It's very well written. I think it was nominated and won a couple Emmys if I'm not mistaken. One of the supporting actresses won an Emmy, Amy Lou Wood. She plays a character named Amy on the show. Just hilarious. But yeah, I recommend it, man. It's worth like just sitting down for a weekend and watching it. It's a really good show. Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. I'll have to check it out.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so for me, I've got a pretty long laundry list of stuff. Like we already mentioned, Why the Last Man, Ted Lasso, Doom Patrol, Titans. I've been rewatching season 5 of The Expanse. Sorry if you can hear anything coming through my mic. Hopefully the background's there. It's harvest time here in Iowa. There's a combine literally sitting right outside my window, and it's running, or maybe it just shut off. Sounds like they just throttled it down. So hopefully you didn't hear any of that. But that brings me to a point of if schedules get wonky in terms of when stuff comes out, it's because it's harvest time and I live on a farm. So if I need to go help my dad move stuff around, that's what I got to go do.
Yep.
Other stuff I've been doing, 100%ed God of War, the 2018 release. Fixed my PS4 setup so I can actually hear and stream at the same time, which is awesome. Played a lot of Valheim with Chris. The new update's been great.
Oh, yeah.
Rewatched The Matrix in preparation for. Hopefully, I'm not going to do the rest because I'm saving it for a movie night. What we're going to do with Chris, we're going to watch the original trilogy probably in November sometime before Resurrections comes out. Or is that October? It's December, right? It comes out? It's December.
It comes out in December.
It's in December. Yeah. So in November sometime, we're going to have to find a weekend or two to do a trilogy watch because he's never seen him all the way through. And then I've also, for new content, watched Lucifer, the final season, all on Netflix.
Okay.
It's just one of those guilty pleasure shows. I would honestly rank it probably below like a Supernatural for me in terms of actually how good it is, you know. But like, it's still just a really fun Supernatural Neil Gaiman-esque because obviously it's based on the Sandman comics where Lucifer shows up, but it's like a separate run. But it's really not even that inspired by that. It's almost like a facelift type of thing. Yeah. It's like you took that motif and put it with like a Bones or name your like castle or something esque procedural with those characters, but still actually told the Supernatural stories pretty well. And Tom Ellis as Lucifer is fucking awesome. Plus D.B. Woodside as Amenadiel. Their dad God is Dennis Haysbert. I mean, come on.
Dennis Haysbert, yeah.
Come on, it's fantastic.
And it exists technically in the Arrowverse. Don't forget that.
Technically, it does because Constantine shows up and Lucifer shows up in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I really dug. I was kind of hoping at some point we'd see him in the background again at some point, Constantine. You know, him hanging out in the bar or something. I thought it would have fit really well with his character, but alas, it didn't happen. Mostly because they shoot in LA, not Vancouver. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's been my couple of weeks in terms of entertainment stuff. But the big one is a show that premiered on Hulu. We're now through episode 4, as we mentioned, and that is Why the Last Man. Now, Why the Last Man was an independent comic. I can't remember who was the publisher.
Actually, it wasn't independent. It was under DC Vertigo.
DC Vertigo. But wasn't it like...
It was just Vertigo. It was just Vertigo.
Yeah.
It was owned by DC at that time, but it was just its own label, just Vertigo. That's where they put a lot of the darker, adulter themed comics. And then, I think it was in the early, like during this run at some point, because this comic came out, I think
it was 2002.
2002.
Ran from 02 to 08.
02 to 08, yeah, 6 years. Somewhere between 02 and 08 is where I think they just completely just scrubbed Vertigo as just its own entity and started calling it DC Vertigo. So if I remember though, but like I have the first issue signed by the artist Pea Guerrera and Brian K. Vaughan, the author, and it is just Vertigo on the top of the labeling. So at some point it does become DC Vertigo.
Yeah, and it ran for 60 issues over that 6-year time frame. And of course, there's been numerous attempts to adapt it, like so many.
A Shia LaBeouf movie.
Yeah, that was like post Eagle Eye era Shia LaBeouf career before he blew everything apart.
Yep.
And then a bunch of stuff after. They recast this show like 2 or 3 times. But now we're here. We finally have the show. It's out. It's gonna at least get season 1.
Yep.
And the creator, I believe, I said she has a multi-season plan. I believe she said potentially 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So Fusion, what have been as a big fan of the run? what has been your thoughts on the adapted version on Hulu?
Sure. I mean, I'll go ahead and give a little. I mean, we might as well talk a little bit of a spoiler on this, but I I like it. I think it's like you just like we mentioned actually before we actually started rolling this podcast, The Expanse, a slow burning show that starts, right? A lot of these sci-fi dramas do that. This is technically sci-fi, even though the science fiction is way in the background, of the
Yeah,
story. But it's going to this story is going to be a lot like that where the drama centers around the characters and their stories, like what takes their arcs, rather than some overarching arc of like supernatural or superhero theme or science fiction that's like in the forefront. Kind of like The Walking Dead. I think that's the best example. Walking Dead. I mean,
yeah.
you think about it, like the characters do drive the story, but at the same time, their struggle to survive in a zombie apocalypse is forefront. This isn't really what takes. I mean, that's not really why the Last Man. So, I think the recasting was done phenomenally. I like the interaction between 355, who is basically a character. She works for a government co-op group that no one knows about except for the president himself or herself in this world. And are you comfortable with spoiling the main theme of this story of
Well,
this?
I mean, at this point, I mean, it's in all the promotional materials. I mean,
That
the main
all men
trailer
are
is
all men are dead. That's
except
basically
for one
except
man.
for one man. His name is York Brown, and his pet monkey ampersand are the only two male creatures left on the planet that they know of. No, I'm kidding. It's yeah. That's the prevailing theme is society has crumbled. Only women are around. What happens next? Because womankind has to rebuild, or has to move on. Like, what are the next steps that happen? That is the overarching theme. But each individual story is, Yorick has to. He's not a very big, strong man. He's not a very outspoken or intelligent man. Like, he's just an average guy, but he finds himself becoming the most important guy in the entire world. So and it's a journey for him. The people around him have their own journeys. That's one thing I loved about this story was you saw the character development from so many of the characters at the very beginning to the very end. And so you kind of forget that this is a comic book. It's more like, is it a telenovela like style? Is it a manga? Like it's not a traditional American comic book where it's so many superpowers, an apocalypse that you have to like deal with, like, monsters and zombies, things like that. You just have to deal with a lot of crazy people that react through PTSD of what happened. And so I like it. I think the story pacing is good. um I will say this though, episode 4, I like the interaction between 355, who's one of the main characters, and Yorick. Their journey is like they go on a journey on foot because society's crumbled. There's no mass transit vehicles. Like the roads are covered with vehicles full of dead men everywhere. So all this stuff. There's like obstacles in the way from traditional traveling methods. So they have to go on foot from DC to Boston for this mission. Um, I wasn't a big fan of episode 4 so much as the first three because um I think the pacing of their story on their way to Boston in that episode was a lot slower than I was expecting. So for them to only have 8 episodes, it feels like, okay, kind of choppy, if that makes sense. Where we get a lot of action, of course, in the first episode of what's happening with the story. In episode 2, kind of what happens next. Episode 3 is, okay, time has passed. Let's do some reuniting and figure out where the actual arc of the series is going in episode 3. And then episode 4 just kind of was like, okay, we're kind of just stuck in this one area. Really, like we have 4 more episodes, so are we just gonna jump? And I think that's gonna be a problem with if this show is 5 seasons of 8 episodes. There's gonna be a lot of jumping. There's gonna have to be a lot of jumping, just because in the comic it drags on a little bit for a reason because there's a lot of people they meet along the way that affect their lives. But I've liked the first 4 episodes overall. I know mainstream has rejected this show, and I know exactly why, and we could discuss that in a little bit. But I mean, I want to pass it over to you, the baton over to you, to get your thoughts on the first 4 episodes.
Um, I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like my oh my god, I need to watch this every week kind of show, at least thus far.
Sure.
Um, like you were mentioning the male lead, like he's basically the comic relief character in a traditional like story, but he's thrust into the lead role,
Yep. Yep.
because by purpose, he's not a hero, he's not that archetype, he's not anything like that. So like he is the guy. I'm curious if they're going to be able to get the audience to root for him, because he doesn't have to be the most interesting character, but you can't actively dislike him. Otherwise, you just why watch the show.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm curious how they walk that tightrope. I've enjoyed him so far, off and on. Like there are some moments where I'm like, this is weird. Like it does almost like it's disjointed. Like they don't know exactly who this character is. You
Yeah.
know, so I'm curious where they go. Of course, they got a few more episodes in the tank here before we can really judge the season as a whole. As much like everyone like bitching about Ted Lasso season 2 not being as the good one, is like, how about we wait until the season's done?
Yeah.
Like if and especially given how up and down it has been, like there are still some really great highs in Ted Lasso, and there have been some really awesome moments in Why the Last Man. Like the premiere was fantastic. That was
Yeah.
awesome. It may be one of those shows where it starts off awesome and just goes downhill. Could be something where, depending on their arc structure, like maybe they're going to do 2 to 3 episodes per arc, or
That's fair.
maybe they'll do 4 and 4, like half a season, basically in terms of, what the different character arcs are going to be.
Sure.
Again, that's not a terrible way to do a comic book adaptation. Agents of Shield was great at that. Once
Yep.
they figured out what the hell they wanted to do, telling 3 or 4 episode arcs was fantastic. Um, so like that's of interest to me to follow. I'm definitely going to keep watching it. 355, she's currently the standout. Diane Lane is the president for now, quote unquote. See what happens? Question mark. She was an awesome cast for playing his mom,
Yeah, she
York's
was.
mom. She's fantastic.
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Some of the subplots are interesting. Of course, having Olivia Thirlby in the show is awesome, but like she doesn't really got to do anything, which sucks because she's awesome. Like give her character something to do, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, and I think we could talk about this at the end of episode 4. Missy Pyle shows up. I was really like, "Holy crap, is that Missy Pyle?" And then because it's time has passed and she's a little older, and but of course they give her the weathered look, given that it's been several months after a cataclysmic event. But if she's they've changed quite a bit in the first 4 episodes from the comic, and I will tell you that the start of it is Hope, which is Yorick's sister. She has her own arc paralleling to Yorick. He ran into, found his mother. She's the president now, and then she sends him on a mission with 355. Whereas Hope is going on her own mission because she's her own person. In the comic, it's very different for a reason, and I think they're if I if she gets caught up with a group of the wrong people. Let's put it like that, okay? I think that group has been modified because of things like the Me Too movement, just being socially aware of like, just women's struggles, in society the past couple years with like sexual assault, things like that. I think they're going to change this group up a little bit, and rather than having the comic book equivalent. I mean, Missy Powell is going to be the comic book equivalent, but a much more modernized version, given how things are in society right now, which I'm okay with. I am a little hesitant about. I'm being honest with you here. I like the show, but I'm still very wary of it because this is a show that a lot of people aren't going to get, and a lot of them don't get because they're waiting for zombies to pop up. Let's be real, they're programmed. A lot of people are like, it's an okay show, not great. I thought there was going to be some more to the story. What they mean is they're waiting for the men to rise up and start chewing on everybody. That's what they're waiting for. Uh, this isn't about that. This is like a social storytelling, and I think I liken it. Hopefully, we end up a lot like Breaking Bad, whereas people that watch Breaking Bad for the first time always tell you the first season was they really didn't really get it, right? But once you get past that first season, that show just takes off and gets better every single season. And then when you go back and watch the first season, you can understand how it's just laying the foundation for what's going to happen with the Walter White story, right? And I think that's what we're going to experience here. But the only concern, and you're right about this, Warburg, they're really not giving you a whole lot about Yorick, and I'm hoping that's intentional because if it's just due to the first episode was laying the foundation of all of the women on the story, they're going to have a struggle with people buying into Yorick at some point, into him, because he's just kind of like he's not the average hero of a story, and yeah, it's going to be kind of tough. But let's see. I'm gonna give it the first season, honestly. Let's see where
Yeah.
we go.
I imagine they're going to have to resolve this, at least the initial. I've spoiled myself on what the story's about, even though I've never
Sure.
read it. I tend to do that with comic book stuff.
Yep.
But I'm hoping the hook, with what happens with the scientist character that they've alluded to a couple of times now.
Yep.
I'm hoping the hook there with her and how she ties into the overarching plot of what happened to the men. I'm hoping that's enough to get people to, keep watching and hopefully have Hulu greenlight season 2. So that way they can at least get to tell a second season. I hate seeing shows unless it's awful, getting murdered in season 1. Like that's never, because like when you're making the show, you don't know how hard to go. Season 2, you can go hard because you're assured of at least a second season and the groundwork is done. So you can just fucking go, like another genre show, Chuck season 2. It's just done. Here we go. Everyone knows what the intersect is and go. I used season 2 was amazing. Justified season 2, best run of the show. Arrow season 2, maybe the best run of the show.
Oh God, I can't. I was like, what is a good example for me to throw out there? But I was thinking of Arrow. I'm like, was it an Arrow that they had?
That was the Deathstroke season.
The Deathstroke season. God, that was such a fucking good
that
season.
one and the season 5, the Prometheus season. Holy fuck, so good.
Oh man.
And Keeley both focus on Deathstroke at the end. Wonder why didn't they get him for the finale? I don't understand it.
That's weird.
All the things the Arrowverse has done right, which they did a lot. They didn't get Manu back for the finale of Arrow? Come on. His Deathstroke was perfect.
He was so great.
So good. Is there anything else we want to add on Why the Last Man? And Jerron, he's in our chat, and I should add for our audio listeners after the fact or on YouTube, we live stream our recordings. We're at twitch.tv/MrWartburg. Jerron at least was here earlier, wondering if he's watched the show. If he hasn't, that's cool. He should watch it, though, and then let us know what he thinks. And if he has, he could put it in the chat right now. Yeah. But anything else you want to add, Fusion?
No, Jerron says he has not. Well, it's worth 4 episodes. It's not nonstop action. It's all about storytelling. I brought up Sex Education being a show that I really like because it's really well written, great storytelling. This one, I'm hoping it's not awful. It's been good, but I have a feeling that the storytelling will have to pick up because that's the only way that you're going to get through to your end game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm hoping people pay attention enough to get to the end game because the end game's cool. Like,
yeah, it's cool.
And I was like, ooh, that was written incredibly cool. Like having like 4 different possibilities, and like what the key mystery is, what happened to the men. That's cool. I hope they get there, but I'm not sure if they will based on critical consensus so far because we're in like the platinum age of television. Like everyone's like, oh, the golden age of TV. It's gone fucking bananas since then. Like, goddamn.
Yeah. Right? I was thinking about that the other day when we were talking about like the Emmys and all these shows, Ted Lasso. I'm like, man, we're just in a whole nother realm of great fucking television.
Yeah, it's incredible. Wow. And I don't know if a show like Why the Last Man can stick around, but I want to segue into a point, and again, a recommendation for a show I've talked about this show. While you're on Hulu, another show that didn't start off like with critical acclaim, but then picked up steam, and found the show it wanted to be, and ended up being one of my favorite shows ever. Go watch 12 Monkeys. Shorter run, 10-episode seasons, 4 seasons. And it was a show like Why the Last Man should take a cue from. I think a lot of shows should do this. Don't do the weekly release. Yeah. Do pods. The seasons 3 and 4 of 12 Monkeys did a month, 3 episodes a month. Or I think it was 2 or 3, 2, 3 or something like that to make it work. But yeah, it was in pods. So you take a month and you dominate like everything for that month. And there's your show. It's done. People aren't sitting here week to week picking apart your show. They're consuming it all at once. The arcs are resolved quicker. You might have more continuous screen time with your characters, create a little better buy-in. And hopefully, especially like shows like this first 3 episodes are really tight usually, unless it's like a Doom Patrol where every week is fucking bonkers. Shows like this were are a lot of times filmed very quick in succession, as though it's going to be this is the first batch. It's become a kind of an almost industry standard for streaming shows to batch the first 3 if it's going to have a weekly release. I would just keep doing that. Do three or four pods of episodes. I think it would serve shows a lot better, especially like a Ted Lasso, which we'll get to, because Apple kind of fucked their pacing and made them throw in 2 extra episodes at the super last minute. You could get around that by getting over it quicker instead of plopping it in the middle of your season and taking basically 2 weeks off your story. You know? I think it'd be interesting to, especially, I don't know if Apple could get away with it because they don't have enough content in the hopper to shorten up their release windows, but the bigger ones do.
Yeah.
You know, Disney does.
I'm kind of curious why Apple put up that fight. Do they have like some traditional Hollywood TV executives that are pushing for for those episodes, like to make it an even number, to optimize it? Because we had talked about this on a previous podcast, just the old days of 26 episodes. That's so. I mean, and even Stephen Amell, he recently went on what's his name, Lex Luthor on Smallville,
Rosenbaum's.
Michael Rosenbaum. He has a great podcast, by the way. Great podcast because he has on all the big names, and it's such a laid back conversation with all these people, right? Great stuff. But he had Stephen Amell on recently, and Stephen basically says, "Yeah, if they called me about doing Arrow again, I'd love to." And he's like, "Okay, well, like, what would it take?" And he's like, "Well, honestly, if it was like a mini series, I'd do it like a small window of episodes." So he goes, "So you would do like just a one shot?" He goes, "No, I'd go back and I'd do several series, several versions, like seasons of mini episodes, like pocketed episodes, like 6 or 7 here, 6 or 7 and a year later or whatever." So I see what Stephen Amell's approach is now. He wants that streaming approach to
Yeah,
television,
because now
which
he's
is
done Heels, which is
yeah,
apparently really good.
it's a good show. It's a good show. It's not, and it's nothing like I thought it was going to be. Very little humor in that thing, very little, but it's a drama to the core. But it's a good show. It's like if you liked the wrestler, the old Mickey Rourke movie, it's a good show to watch. It really is. But yeah, it's funny to hear him say that because he was a TV guy, his first big lead show, and doing he said I can't do 22 episodes a season of network TV. I can't do that anymore. I don't want to do that. And I see so many of these big name stars that say, "Hey, I want to dip into TV, but I don't want to do 20 episodes." Oh, I can go to Apple and do 8, or I can do 10, and 30 minutes rather than an hour, 26 episodes of an hour. That's like, that's 8 months of your time. Whereas I'm assuming that Ted Lasso probably takes what, like 5 months to produce, to
If
film and
that, like the
produce.
actual filming, no, I can't imagine it for full unit. Like everybody is there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't imagine it's that long. It's 10 episodes. So I'm thinking 3 months. That's 12 weeks.
Because what's her name? I forget. She plays Rebecca Hannah. I forget her last name,
Hannah
but
Waddington.
Waddington. She's also on Sex Education as well, and so she does filming obviously for both of those. So her schedule fits because honestly, she's like, "Hey, it's not, these shows don't take up a full calendar year for me of production, so I can do multiple TV shows." At some point, we have to change the name, right? Because they're no longer TV shows. Just like a record, it's no longer a record anymore, right? What do we call? We call it an album. Is that what we call
And
it?
maybe just show.
Show.
I think
Yeah,
that's the most consistent term across the industry.
because we can't say series because series means seasons in the UK.
Yeah,
When we
it's
say
got different
series,
meanings across the industry. You
yeah.
know,
So yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to say. We're gonna have to call it something else because everybody's moving everything to streaming services outside of television now. And if you look at regular network TV, there's a lot more reality TV more than
yeah.
ever.
Well, speaking of things changing, we're going to get to Ted Lasso in a moment, but I
Sure.
just off the cuff want to get your reaction to what's going on with the workers industry
Yeah.
going on. Like it's the IATSE, I think. I can't remember
Yeah.
what it stands for, but it's basically if you've watched any of the shows we're talking about, it's all union crews,
Yep.
and they're threatening a strike, which has never happened, and it would. We've talked a few times about how the writer's strike affected some of our favorite TV shows. We
Yep.
talk about like Supernatural season 3, Chuck season 2, or season
Breaking
1
Bad.
maybe.
Season
Breaking
one.
Bad was affected. Like a lot of shows were hit by that. This strike would fucking dwarf that. I
Yeah.
mean, it'd
Yeah.
be in it just I can't put into words how much more it would be. Like there might not be new shows, period.
Yep.
You know, so
Yep.
like I'm curious to see the shock was. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I don't have the specifics. I have some friends we could talk to if we ever wanted to do it, you know, something about the strike. But
Yeah.
you know, like I'm thinking like Jen, you know, would be someone to talk to. You know, that would be at least comfortable talking about stuff. So, you know, like if that ever came up, but it's gonna definitely be something to watch. You know, don't sleep on it. Look it up if you've never, you know, heard what I'm talking about. Just search IATSE like as an acronym,
Yep.
then strike, because it's nuts what they get put through. You know, like former Rooster Teeth art director Max, I think his last, I can't remember his last name actually. He was talking about how like yeah he'd get, you know, 18-hour shoot days with an hour and a half drive home, and then have to turn around and start the next morning at 7 a.m. You know, it's
Yep.
like that is unacceptable, and a lot of their conditions are terrible, and they don't get treated fairly, you know, because they're not the faces of the industry.
Yep.
So it's going to be something to watch, and it
Well,
might.
I get what you're saying as someone who used to work crew on film and television. I worked in radio for a long time in production as well, but as someone who experienced that culture, um, I will tell you, yeah, it is a grind because um, the big names that do carry it, the producers, the directors, the producers and directors are they pick and choose when they're on set. The director, and people don't understand this, the director isn't always on set for that shot that day. He may have things handed over to the second director. You know if it's like if you're just shooting non-essential dialogue, things like that, right? Um, the actors, if they have to work long days, but they get to go to a trailer and rest somewhere, right? The crew doesn't have that option. They have to go wherever they're stationed. If there is, hotels that were rented, for location shots, or if they live in the area, they have to go, like you said, go home and turn back around. Like they'll be shooting till 4 in the morning, and then if call time the next day is 8 a.m., they get a couple hours of sleep. Um, so I understand that they want to go on strike for a better working environment for crews, and I'm okay with that because a lot of the directors get paid very well. The producers, of course, they get their cut. But when you talk about the gaffers, the lighting, the craft services, like those people may get paid a little bit more than like production assistants, people that move things around on set because those people are just as essential because you have to reset up the set for every shot. Just like we're about to talk about the Matrix. Remember that first elevator scene? That thing, like they had to spend an hour to reset it every time. So the goal was to get it right in the earliest take as possible. But then every time there was an issue with anything, they had to stop and completely, the crew, the people that are being paid, 15, this is 1999, $10 to $15 an hour have to go in there and clean everything up, set everything up, and get everything ready for the next retake. Yeah, I can understand why you're like, hey, this is gonna be a big deal. Yeah, this is because we're talking about it affecting all production,
Yeah,
period.
and their
And
their
yeah,
union is so much bigger than the writers
yeah,
union,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm wondering what the shockwaves will be like. Will production costs, of course, probably go up? Will there be less content? You know,
Yeah.
like I'm curious, like, and that's not a negative at all.
No, no,
It's
it's
just
not.
more of a what will happen next kind of prognostication, and it's just going to be fascinating to watch as the industry kind of changes almost immediately before our eyes. Those kind of moments don't happen often.
Yeah.
Hang on, what's updating on my computer?
Uh-oh.
There we go. We're fine. It was just a
Okay.
background update.
Making sure you don't have like some random restart happening.
No, I
Uh,
downloaded some new PDF software because Adobe makes you fucking pay to merge
oh
PDFs
yeah,
files. What
yeah.
the fuck?
Don't even get
What
me
the
started
fuck,
on it.
Adobe? Ah,
Yeah. So what you were saying, you're right. The big shift probably will be that while streaming services have episodes going down to 8 to 10 episodes a season, network TV is still pushing for that 20 plus, right? We're gonna see a stop to that for sure
oh yeah.
because crews aren't like the studio is going to say, okay, well, if we have to make sacrifices here in terms of paying people more, then we can't have 20 episodes. And the only reason why studios want that kind of episode load is strictly for advertising. The more episodes they put out there, the more commercial blocks they can make money off of. That's really what it's about for them. So that's why like streaming services say, let's focus on we're not focused on time slot because of commercial blocks, when we have to be in and out of every hour that we're programmed for. We don't have that. If an episode needs to go 30 minutes or if it needs to go 55 minutes, fuck it, it's gonna go that. However, the story is produced for that episode. Okay, great. And we're only you're gonna with a condensed episode list, you're gonna have to be able to tell your story for that season. Better. So I see that it puts pressure on the writers to make sure they do it that way. Whereas and we both know this, that a lot of episodes in a lot of these network TV shows over the years that we've watched, they have like almost 5 to 6, 7 episodes that are just filler episodes.
Mm-hmm.
We have two of them in Ted Lasso this year. You talked about that,
Yeah.
but like in network TV, there was like, let's give the so and so assistants their own episode. Now
Yeah,
let's give the wife of the main
here's the
character.
backdoor pilot episode.
Yep.
You know? It's just
And
you
there's always and now there's always a fucking musical episode, right?
mhm.
Where the show turns into a musical all of a sudden, right? So yeah, I get it. And let's not forget the obligatory Christmas episode. That has to be done every show.
Yeah.
Um, whereas streaming services, they don't always focus on that. So when we got Ted Lasso's Christmas episode, I was like, oh, I like that. I like the fact that they did one.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, this strike could be really big. I think maybe at some point if we see that it's heading towards the actual strike potentially happening, we should probably have someone on. Maybe Jen would come on to just give
Yeah.
her 2 cents as well. She's fresher in the industry. So she has
Yeah.
more to speak on that.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to, keep an eye on that going forward. So hopefully, you know, well, not hopefully. I mean, I guess we'll just see what happens.
Yep.
All right, moving back on to more specific content. We can
Yes, let's
actually
go.
talk about stuff. We
Yep.
talked a lot about Ted Lasso. So, as we got some newer stuff, and I'm hoping to do a Ted Lasso episode, our next show with a couple of guests, we'll give our brief thoughts on where we're at 10 episodes into the season so far.
All right. All
So,
right.
Fusion, where you at on Ted Lasso? I have not watched this week's, but I kind of know what happens.
This week's episode very, very emotional. We've had actually quite a few very emotional episodes. Last week's beard episode, I know that pissed off a lot of people because we leave the week before with the cliffhanger about Ted talking about his dad, that big reveal, and then boom, we're just gonna take. And was this one of the Philly? Do you think this was
This
one of
was
the?
the other one. They
It's
confirmed it. It was
obvious. Okay.
Christmas in this one.
Okay. So it's funny we bring those two up then, because Christmas really didn't tell a whole lot of direction to the ongoing plot for this
Yeah,
season.
it was
Not
just
much.
plopped in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we still got one of the best scenes with Roy, Keeley, and his niece
Oh yeah.
ever.
Like it still had great
Like,
moments. Like
yeah, like just that. I mean, Roy Kent's been great. Overall at this point, I think I mentioned there were two stories that they were kind of hinting at very early on that I was a little worried that they were going to be executed. One of them's well, both of them are actually happening. One of them's happening better than I thought, and that's going to, and you'll see when you see this episode, you'll like it. But basically, we had talked about the big swerve that involves Rupert.
mhm.
He's going to have some involvement. He does in this episode. You're going to watch it. You're going to be like, okay, yeah, we're going there. It's a little more different than I thought it was going to be because the people involved with Rupert, I'm like, oh shit, okay, they're going there. The other thing is, and it's this episode, but I'll bring it up. There's a love triangle now, and that really I saw
I
that
heard about that.
I saw this happening, man, and with those three, and it's just, are we really gonna do that? I didn't want that to happen, just because I'll be honest about it. I'm a big fan of Roy Kent. I love his fucking story. I love his arc. And I like the way he and Keeley's the way they're dynamic. I think it's great. And I felt that Jamie jumping back into the mix, it's just like I grit my teeth a little bit because it, there have been several episodes I've watched this and I really felt like they didn't have a direction for Jamie Tart.
Yeah.
It felt like they didn't have a lot for him because everybody else had so much going on, even Beard and Nate, and it just was like, okay, is this where we're gonna stick him in with 2 episodes to go? That's really like his thing comes in now. And he had very little. A few episodes ago where he fought his dad, that was a big deal, but like that was kind of like it wasn't. It was a little climactic for me, the fight with his dad. But overall, it has been a good episode. I mean, a good season. Um, I think I'm kind of wondering what they're doing with Ted himself, just because he seems a bit more secondary at this point.
Mhm.
That's how I feel with him, and I know I know a lot of people really hated that Beard episode because it really killed the momentum. I thought it was kind of funny. I didn't think it was bad. But I mean, I love this show, man. I love this show. It's such a good show.
I wish. So for me, that Beard episode should have aired after the season.
Okay.
Like, remember season 2? They were like, yeah, we have this whole episode with Carl Urban that we're gonna put out after the show. They never did, and I
Yeah.
imagine it was maybe due to editing or something. Maybe it didn't come together like they thought it could. But apparently,
Yeah.
they had like 40 some minutes of footage, and they thought they could get it to work and didn't. This Beard episode could have been that, and it could have been
Okay.
a month after the season. Like is done. Hey, here's a fun thing while we're working on season 3. Because
Like
it would be
like a webisode or something,
yeah,
right?
it'd be like a high production version of that to also continue to drive people to Apple TV on the more cynical side, but also better serve, the show because it was fun, a fun episode. You got some fun the C characters, like the bar guys get to be
The bar
involved in the
guys.
story, and you pick up the story with Jamie's dad again, like that kind of thing.
Yep.
Really small, like not essential story beats. Like Beard's romance really doesn't matter. Like it's not something anyone gives a shit about because she as a character is like never in the show, um
No, she's not. She's not.
not at all. Like she's just not a character, you know. So, that I think would have served as a really great, hey, we'll do this in a month episode, like after everything's done. Let's get back to the show. But it was still fun. And I actually laughed quite a few times. But I got a bone to pick with Apple. Your player sucks fucking dick.
Oh yeah, that. Oh yeah. Don't
It
oh,
skipped
go ahead.
half the episode. I turned
Really?
away to get a drink, skipped the episode. I was like, what? Whoa, what the? Why is he getting beat up right now? Oh, and then I was like, then I moved my mouse. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Did I pass out? Like, did I miss 15 minutes of the show? And then I had to go back and find my spot. I was like, what? How is this possible, Apple? You the amount of money, the amount of millions per episode I know you dumped in Foundation. What the fuck are you doing? Your player is awful. Is garbage.
Yeah.
As much
It
money
sucks,
as you
man.
have, figure it out. You're not fucking
think-
Peacock.
Yeah,
better.
man. I have to admit it sucks because I have to every time I start an episode, I literally have to before I even decide to sit down, refresh it because it locks up at the intro.
Yeah,
Every
HBO
time.
Max does the same thing. If I skip ahead at any point in an episode, it'll freeze, and I gotta refresh the page.
Huh.
It's like, what? Why? Why are you so awful?
Yeah, but the Apple player is crap. It's crap. I mean, it's like I don't know. You probably don't have it, but the TNT web app for the
Oh, I
TNT
used to. Yeah,
that thing is just pure garbage.
I
It, like,
imagine it
rubber
hasn't
bands.
changed much. Yeah,
Yeah, it just rubber bands throughout any production you watch. And it's like, can I not watch a movie without it rubber banding back and forth? And I have to just close out the browser and restart, like clean out the cache and start over. But yeah, come on, Apple, you gotta do better than that. Not only that, but man, their UI for their shows not very user friendly. Not user friendly
you
at all.
can't
man.
like. I go to Apple TV Plus. I'm like, how do I get to the show? Like,
Yeah.
I'm fairly tech savvy. I have like a ton of different subscriptions. Even Peacock's UI is better, and Peacock's UI is fucking garbage. It's
Yeah.
awful. It's hot fucking garbage. Like just copy Netflix. Like at some point, just be like, copy Netflix, iterate off that.
That's what literally Hulu did that because Hulu's UI was trash for years, and people were like, okay, Disney, if you're gonna put all of your adult content, your Fox stuff and your adult content on Hulu, you better fix this shit. And a couple months ago, they redid the whole goddamn thing, and it's so much better now.
Yeah.
So much better now.
Like just copy like there's nothing wrong with copying the leader and iterating as you go.
Nope.
Nothing wrong with that. Especially when you know what you have sucks.
Yep.
It's just not fun. Not
It's
a fun
frustrating.
experience.
Well, let me ask you the other blow off episode. Did you like the Christmas episode?
I did. I thought that fit.
Okay.
Of course, in the timing of it, they filmed it in February, so it makes sense that they're doing a Christmas episode.
Sure.
I think it fit thematically. I didn't think it really slowed down the episodes too much. It was the Beard episode that I was like, okay, this feels like network TV fucking around with shit again, and I don't like it. But they could have, big brain moved it and put it at the end to drive more viewers to Apple TV, because people are going to cancel their subscriptions at the end of October. You put that Beard episode in November with a previously on, like you flash back to what happened at Man City, and then here's the episode, people would re-up their subscriptions for that at $5 a month. I mean, it would have been a great move and better served your story for this particular season in September.
Yeah.
Come on, Apple. I'm just some fucking 31-year-old dude in Iowa. It's not that big. It's not that crazy of an idea. You should have just fucking done that. Get out of your own way.
Yeah, don't be a Warner Brothers. Don't be them. Don't do that.
It felt like a stupid WB move.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Don't ever go full Warner Brothers. Don't do it. Don't do it because you're gonna anger a lot of people. I mean, let's be real. Ted Lasso is really on thin ice to begin with because edgelords love shitting on the show because it's
Well, then
such
thematically, it is different. It's a different message
yeah.
this season as opposed to last season. This is the Empire Strikes Back-esque season because they were like, this is a 3-act fucking story, right? Yep. And across multiple genres, the second act's got a lot of key similarities with other like storytelling. It's a little more somber, it's a little slower, a little darker, and it's gonna maybe end on a cliffhanger, as opposed to season 1 where we knew where we were going, that kind of thing. Like, who knows where season 2 ends, of course, but I think if you were viewing it entirely objectively, you could have seen, yeah, season 2 is gonna feel different because it should. If it's a specific like 3-act story. Another shows that run longer don't have that second season dip because they're still looking way to the future, like way years down the road. Whereas this show, they're only looking towards season 3. That's it.
Yep.
Like they know where they're fucking going. So again, I think a lot of that discourse around is Ted Lasso sucked now. You gotta wait for him to stick the landing. Like, because you have to. They know the story already. It's done. It's in the can. Like they know what's happening. Let it happen, then judge. Whereas other shows, like I mentioned, Chuck, like season 2 was amazing, but season 3 really wasn't. Because they were still going forward. They were looking forward and didn't know where the ending was. So just something to think about.
Yeah.
So, anything else you have on Ted Lasso?
I like the show, man. I like the show.
It's still a fun time. Like, it's just a really fun Friday watch,
Yeah, man. Like if I'm able to catch it before work in the morning, if I'm up early enough and I haven't started working yet, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna spend 30, 40 minutes watching the show, and I enjoy it. I come away with moments where I laugh, and usually moments where I'm like, Roy Kent's such a great fucking character. Every episode, I'm like, I say to myself, he's such a great character. It's so funny because I figured I was gonna be, I figured if there was gonna be a character I'm gonna like his hokiness or like who he is for what he is, it would be Ted Lasso. But I'm like, no. I mean, Sudeikis plays a great Ted. He does a great job with this, and through the sad parts that we've had a lot recently, he's done a wonderful job with the drama. Like, don't get me wrong, he's been great with that. But just to see Brett Goldstein's Roy Kent's hilarious to me, man.
Yeah, and the story about how he got cast is great too.
Yeah, just the story of how he got cast, and if you go back and watch YouTube, it's just so funny to see this guy do stand up because he's a stand up comedian and he's funny, but just to hear his voice is pitched lower, he speaks faster, he's he's so full of energy, and that's nothing like what Roy Kent the character is, and I that's what I love about the fact it's like, okay, this guy, he's a good actor, he's a good actor. And yeah, it's good stuff, man. I'm a Roy Kent fan. Yeah, I'm hoping they do stick the landing in this season because season 3, like we've said, is so pivotal to end the show. We know where they're heading with season 3. Like what the payoff is. The payoff in season 3 is going to be: are they going to win it all or not? We know that's going to happen. But whatever sets up here with all the drama is going to create the Bronx is burning type of thing. All of the drama behind the
dysfunction is the point.
Yep.
Like the analogy, of course, Major League, they're Act 2 and into Act 3, whole lot of team dysfunction. Will they come together? Will it all work out? And then, of course, it does because it's the 80s sports movie. Of course, it does. But similar-esque arc of the team's dysfunctional. Like pieces are not connecting all the way. The Pistons are firing, but the timing's not there. And that's on purpose.
Yep.
I think people are missing that point.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Can't wait to see what happens these next 2 episodes. Yeah.
Should be a good time. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping we can get a couple guests on to talk about the finale and have a whole like actual Ted Lasso talk for the end of season 2. That should be a great time.
Are we gonna call it TED Talk?
I'm goddamn. I'm writing that down.
There you go. TED Talk.
I'll even
Be
do
sure
it
you
with a
get a nice.
question mark.
Be sure you get some. We may have to get a really awesome mustache
Oh,
underneath
we should definitely.
TED Talk.
Okay, if I get everyone to say yes this week, I'm ordering everyone mustaches.
All right.
Yes. If I get everyone
Well,
in.
in 2 weeks, I could grow mine,
Oh,
man.
I
in
could,
2
but I'd have
weeks.
to shave the beard.
Oh, that's true.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go with like a big mustache, like
Okay.
even dwarfing the beard.
Okay. Like a Raleigh Fingers type of thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so other stuff to talk about for me is Titans and Doom Patrol season 3.
Go for it.
In particular, I actually am really digging the Doom Patrol season 3 so far. Season 2, did you watch Doom Patrol at all?
I watched parts of the first season, so I haven't caught up yet. My goal is at some point here to watch them. Yeah.
It's
Watch season-
fantastic. I think it's the best DC property. I think pound for pound, but Legends of Tomorrow is fucking awesome in terms of their TV side of things so
Oh,
far.
'cause it's okay. So what about where's Harley Quinn? Is that just because she's streaming?
Well, no, so is
So
Doom
so
Patrol,
is Doom
but
Patrol.
it's a different type of show. I'm more in the live action, like pure adaptation, because they're
Okay, I
adapting
got
the Doom Patrol run, whereas Harley Quinn herself was not an adaptation; she was an entirely original character. You know, they're not really adapting something specific with Harley Quinn, but they're kind of doing Gotham City Sirens and that whole what was that year where Gotham exploded? What was that called?
Cataclysm.
Yeah,
Cataclysm.
they're kind of adapting a lot different pieces of the Batman mythos within her
Yeah.
universe, but it's almost more DC as a whole as opposed to a specific point in time. Like Doom Patrol is really, God, I'm blanking on the creator's name who did this run, but it's really pulling heavily from
Is
all
it
his
Garth
stuff.
Ennis?
Might have been
Ennis's
his
run?
stuff, and it's like
Okay.
really pulling specifically from that. Whereas like at Titans, is a show that's technically in the same universe because of the crossover with Beast Boy, even though they have a different Niles in his episode, which was weird.
Yeah.
But they're kind of the same universe, and I'm really hoping they stick with it because Titan season 3 has been really really good, and Doom Patrol so far is off to a great start. First 3 episodes fantastic. They resolve the one episode season 2 got cut. So they didn't do their finale due to COVID. They resolve it in the first 10 to 15 minutes and really well done too for as rushed as it is. Kind of and now it's resolved storyline, but you still get the same message of what they would have done in the finale, which I really dug. Some interesting individual character arcs, like now they got Steel or Cliff Steele. He's robot body, human brain. He might have Parkinson's, right? Like shit. What does that do? Like that kind of story. It's Doom Patrol is very individual specific storytelling where like everyone's got their own issues and trying to deal with it together, which I fucking love. And then Titans is more traditional superhero fare in a kind of a darker world, but I'm really liking how fleshed out they're going with the Gotham side of the universe now. Now that they've got that HBO money, you can tell. Oh, their costumes are so much better. The production is so much better. The choreography is better. It's all better.
Yeah, let's be real. Season 1, the costumes were
outside of Robin's costume, it was pretty rough, right? And then season 2 got better because Deathstroke was dope, and the actor was really good. I'd put him below Arrow's Deathstroke, but that's because Arrow's Deathstroke's top damn tier. But it's really great to watch the show and like actually get to enjoy it. Like I'm not muddling through it. It's good now, which is nice. And like we've seen a Lazarus Pit. We've seen Tim Drake. We've got a whole bunch of different characters now. Like they're really fleshing out the Gotham side of it. Like we've seen an adaptation of Oracle, Barbara Gordon as Commissioner Gordon, who's still paralyzed. So referencing Killing Joke a couple times. Like it's been a really fun season of fleshing out where they've kind of set up the universe to be. And I'm hoping they get to continue it because it's got a lot of potential with a character that came back this week. I didn't think we would actually see, but a character that died is back. And I was like, wow, that's weird. They're doing that. I know it's comic booky, and of course it's kind of rote for comic books, but the show wasn't set up to be that kind of show,
Okay.
And now they're leaping into, it's a comic book show. Okay, we're done with the whole edgelord fuck Batman shit. It's a comic book show, which is a way better tone for the actors. The lead, they're Dick Grayson. He's awesome as Dick Grayson. Like trying to make him this dark edgelord dude in seasons 1 and 2 really didn't work because he's a really likable dude. Let him be Dick Grayson. I don't get what people like have a problem with just letting the characters be the characters. You know? It's like let Superman be fucking Superman. He doesn't need to be Batman with superpowers.
Yeah.
You know? Like let your characters really shine, and they're really starting to do that, which that even though it's not the best show in the world, that really makes me just enjoy watching the show. You know? Letting your characters lead the story and like be interesting characters instead of constantly undercutting them, doing stuff like in your head you know the character wouldn't do that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
hate that shit in shows. Hate it. And honestly, a couple times Ted Lasso's done this season, but they might be able to turn it back around and you get why they did the thing. But it's been a fun time. I'm really enjoying it. The
Cool.
other
No, go
stuff
ahead.
on you
Go
go
ahead.
for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say no. I haven't had a chance to really sit down with Doom Patrol. It's a comic that I read when I was a kid, of course. But then I kind of focused. I kind of phased out a lot of the DC secondary comics, and I focused on like Flash, Batman, Superman, and Green Lantern. And then I focused heavily on Marvel. At that point, like in the late '80s, early '90s, I became really focused on the X-Men, just because the late '80s to the late '90s was such an incredible run for the X-Men. So that was like really where my time went into reading. So I knew of the Doom Patrol. I will try to watch the first few episodes of it. I know I'm gonna sit down and watch it. It's just there's just like you said, we're in this platinum age of TV, man, where there's just so much good shit. There's so much good content. Like when we went into quarantine last year, my wife was like, "What are we gonna do?" I'm like, well, "There's a lot of fucking great shows to catch up on. Come on, like seriously, like there's a lot to watch." And for the first time, she watched the entire series of 24,
Ooh, great
and
show.
you
What a
know,
moment that was in network television history. Like that
but I
was
mean,
fucking everywhere.
it was groundbreaking because it was real timed television, and each episode was a cliffhanger, and it was nonstop action. So think about 24 episodes of nonstop action. Now imagine binge watching that, like it posts on a Friday. You'd be exhausted, man, spending your whole weekend watching
Yeah, it
24.
would be
You would need to
24
take
straight hours of watching TV.
but just like how exhausting the action and the story and how suspenseful it is, by the end of it, you'd be like, I need to take Monday off of work, man. I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
But I will sit down and I'll watch Doom Patrol. I've been hesitant about Titans because I've heard from a few people. It's an okay show. It's okay, and so at some point I do want to get it in because I do when I have time when I'm looking for something that I haven't watched yet, I'll dip into it.
And mercifully, it's pretty short.
Okay, well,
Not
that's
a
fair.
big time commitment.
Okay.
It's 50-minute episodes, like 6 or 7 a season. Like this year is going to be the longest to date episodes. Because the first season was when DC Universe was really like up in the air of is it even going to exist anymore?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So like the show is definitely plagued by that inconsistency of budget, inconsistency of like cast availability. Like it was a weird time where DC didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They still really don't, but they had way too many irons in the fire with
Yeah.
no direction on any of them.
I mean, that's how Swamp Thing got completely fucked up
And it
because of that whole
looked
disaster.
so good. Like it looked awesome.
Oh, I know. The trailer of Swamp Thing, I was like, finally. And then as soon as you see the news, it's like DC is potentially canceling in the middle of production,
Yeah, you're like,
because of this. Like, oh man, are we really gonna do that? And then of course they aired the first season. They're like that one season, like, okay, we're gonna put it out there.
and the
And just
shitty
because
part is they fucking knew HBO Max was in the pipeline. Like,
I know,
you're
I
fucking
know.
Warner Brothers. You know the plan. Unless you're telling me that HBO shit came together in like 10 months, you knew what the fuck was coming down the pipe. Why did you even start this thing?
Yeah.
Like, you knew all these options on the table, and you go with that one?
Yep. If it were me, I would say Swamp Thing's a darker series, much more violent and
Dude, Swamp
adult-oriented
Thing on
story.
HBO sounds
On
fucking
HBO,
amazing.
like just have it as your day one release. Just put the whole season out there to
Yeah, it's
taste,
out.
like to whet the appetite, and just like people would have been like, produced and
That's how you would do a Justice League Dark. You do
yeah,
one season for each character.
okay,
Cliffhanger is meeting another character in the universe. But
okay,
like a jump forward in time, like a meetup. And you do like 4 seasons in a year. next year, that's like what the Defenders was doing, but you do it right. You don't fuck it up, right? Like it'd be amazing. And like
I want to read this. I can't wait for there to be like a documentary on Disney Plus about what happened with the Defenders.
right, like
Like
behind
what
the
happened.
scenes, like all the
Yeah.
Daredevil people got shut out. Like that seems weird because
And
they
then it
were,
became Daredevil season 2.5, 2 point,
yeah,
2.5.
but like they weren't involved in any of
Off
it.
with it.
Which is crazy. These guys were king shit. Like they were like the best people that Netflix had. They weren't that involved with their.
And then they and then they completely just changed Finn Jones's Iron Fist personality that to where
Yeah,
people felt more like, okay, that was what I was expecting in his show, not what we got from
yeah,
him.
it was so weird.
Yeah, God, it was just so bad.
What a
And
weird
then
time.
the reveal of the hand. Don't even get me started on the reveal of the
Could have
hand.
just been Madame Gao and Madame Gao alone, but whatever.
Uh, it was just so stupid. 5 people, and they were kicked out of Kung Lao.
Yeah,
I don't even. Okay, all right.
we don't
You know
want
what,
to.
man?
We're not going to get down on
Yeah,
things. What we're going to do is
no.
talk about something fucking rad as hell, and that's the
Let's
Matrix
do it.
Resurrection trailer.
Let's do this. Let's do this. All
I
right, man.
rewatched Enter the Matrix, or is it the Matrix or is it Enter the Matrix?
No, Enter the Matrix was the anime movie
Yeah,
that
it
they
was
produced.
no, that was Animatrix.
That was Animatrix. Enter the Matrix was a game,
Yeah,
a
the
really good
Matrix
fun
is
game.
just the 19. Is it 99?
99. The
99.
Matrix.
Keanu Reeves. Lawrence
Yep.
Fishburne. Carrie Ann Moss.
Yep.
Uh, movie. Still a great movie. Goddamn, it's so good. It's all
Did you,
awesome.
did you hear a few weeks back when Will Smith finally talked about this? Because we had talked about this that he was originally like
Yeah,
that was who they
he
wanted to be
did
Neo
Wild Wild West
of the
over
West.
the Matrix.
Now, did you hear his video where he tells a story about the Wachowski brothers' pitch? Back then they were the brothers. Their pitch to him. He said, "Look, I go into this room, and these guys are just like t-shirts and shorts, and they're like, so like we've got this idea of like you being this really cool. They're basically talking like Keanu.
Yeah.
So that's why they got along so well with Keanu over the past 25 years. Is because they both were essentially the same type of kind of cool, kind of laid back personalities. And Will was just like, this isn't firing me up. And then he was like, I'm gonna go do this sci-fi western instead.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically was like, "Yeah, I fucked up, but here's my story at the time. This was the pitch. These two guys were just like, so like, so like, it's gonna be cool. You're gonna be flying through the air with cameras, and they didn't really talk about the actual big reveal of the story of the Matrix, which let's be real, in 1999, none of us were expecting that story because the trailer showed you, okay, I think this is kind of a sci-fi robot movie, I think, right? I think that's what we're getting.
Yeah, we got
And then
bullet time in the trailer, but like no context.
no context of it. So we're like, okay, maybe that's like a robot or something. Like, okay, that's cool. And then we go watch the movie. We're like, what the fuck? I wasn't expecting any of this. Holy shit. Like, this is like a mind blower. This is crazy to think about this. We're in a simulation. Holy shit. Um, yeah, it's such a great movie, man. I love watching it every now and then. Now the trailer for Resurrection, it reaffirmed kind of my thought, and I'm gonna go. Can I go ahead and reveal it now? Like, are we cool? Okay. My thought was from the very beginning that Neo and Trinity, when I heard that they were bringing them both back, two things were gonna happen. One of two things were gonna happen. One was gonna be Neo's body was preserved. He was brought back to life and plugged back into the Matrix to protect it or whatever, however you want to say it. But basically, the machines saved him right after he died from absorbing Agent Smith, right, and purging him, and that Trinity was going to be a construct within the Matrix that was just in there, and they were living their lives, and somehow he clicks. Instead, it looks like they're both plugged into the Matrix. It looks like the robots preserved both their bodies, saved them, and put them into the Matrix.
See,
That's what it looks like.
I don't think she's real. I think she's a manifestation of his own memories.
Okay, that could still be a possibility, but for some reason I thought in that trailer there was a quick shot of her in the real world.
Maybe.
Like she's in a tube. Like I could have sworn like she's in a tube. Like she's plugged into the Matrix inside a vat of the. I think there was like
I'm gonna have to
if you
rewatch
go
it.
back, rewatch it, I think there was one shot of her like moving around inside of a tub inside the plugged in. So that's like, to me, it's like, okay, so they're both plugged in. We obviously know that Neo is alive, human form. He's alive. They preserved him. They plugged him back into the Matrix, right? This whole thing with Morpheus makes it a little weird.
Well,
Why
because in
now? Like,
canon, he's dead.
yeah,
He
he is
died
dead.
in the
Well,
Matrix Online.
mm,
No, he died.
mm, the Wachowskis have said that that's a red herring. They have said that.
Okay.
They have said that. So
I mean, I'm down
yeah,
to be shocked. Like, I'm gonna watch this movie. I'm gonna go to see it in theaters, biggest screen I can. Like, it's one of those movies, kind of like Dune
okay,
for me, where I'm like, oh, I'm going to a nice theater. I'm gonna
yeah.
drop the $12 on this ticket and just be prime seat. Get it ahead of time so I know I'm in the best seat in the house.
Now, one thing I did hear was someone from the studio has kind of dropped the hint to these Hollywood insiders on their blogs that this is a Halloween Danny McBride type of thing where it's completely retcons the sequels and takes you. It's a sequel to the first film. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, I could see that, but I don't know why you would do that for a movie that's this culturally relevant through all
yeah,
three movies, where Halloween fell off pretty quickly.
yeah,
Like that kind of thing. Alien, same thing, where honestly it gets really fucking bonkers after the first one, right? Like it's
yep,
weird.
yep, yeah,
Total
it's weird.
change. Whereas the first one's a trilogy. Like
Yeah,
it's like it'd be like the Hobbit retconning Two Towers and Return of the King.
yeah, and
That'd be
going like
super
immediately
fucking
after
weird,
Fellowship. Yep,
right?
yeah, totally.
Like now, with sci-fi, you could get away with it, you know, within reason. Wouldn't be the craziest thing I've ever heard. I mean, we've got episode 9 happened, right? Like, it wouldn't be the craziest thing I've ever heard. But it'd be so dumb because 2 and 3 happened. They weren't like critically the best ever, but they were not bad movies. Like, there was some dope fucking shit in those movies, right? Like, that whole final fight between Neo and Agent Smith. God
Yeah.
damn, that's awesome. Kind of cliched and overdone now with all the slow mo and punches and stuff, but like at the time, I mean that was top tier cinema right there.
Yeah, that was.
Retconning that just seems short sighted and almost kind of anti fan. Like this is a
Yeah.
movie that's predicated its release on nostalgia, and being anti nostalgia seems like the wrong play for a sci-fi franchise.
I agree. I think the biggest problem. I mean, I liken it not on maybe on a much smaller scale to the Star Wars EU pre-Disney purchase, if that makes sense. Because you have the Animatrix, you have these other books that were written around the Matrix, you had the video games. The video games, by the way, that were directly tied into the movies. Like they filmed scenes for these games to tie into the movies. And then, the Enter the Matrix, the MMO, was directly tied into as a sequel to the Matrix
Yeah, it was a
films.
full transmedia
Like
property.
this whole property, like the story expands over this long period of like content in different forms. And so for them to just say, yeah, we didn't really, uh, they were technically well, the Revolutions wasn't as panned as Reloaded. Reloaded was hated, and I think the problem with that one was that was a very commercialized movie. Like that movie, like there was in every single product on TV, there was a Matrix
Well,
tie-in to
and
it.
you could tell it was, hey, we got to cash in on this,
Yeah,
kind of mentality. Whereas,
the studio fucked that. Yeah,
yeah, and like constantly showing the slow mo stuff in the trailers and everything, right? Like it was overdone, but not bad. Just you know, kind of unfulfilling, maybe.
yeah.
Especially because it could no longer do the thing that Matrix did, which was blow people away.
Yeah.
Post the Matrix, not very often I've been absolutely stunned watching a movie. Like, oh my god, I just watched maybe the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like The Arrival or Arrival 2015, Dennis
Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, Blade Runner 2049. Again,
Okay,
same
that's a
same
good one.
director with Arrival, and I'm hoping
Yeah.
Dune's that good. I sat
I,
back and just went like, I looked over to Joey when I was watching 2049 when like the twist happens and you find out what's going on with Kay, or not Kay, the Gosling's character, when you find out who he is or is not. I looked over at Joy and both our faces just, God, right? Like,
like this. a sequel 30 years later, and it's still
this good, right?
great.
Like
It's good. Yeah.
The Matrix, the sequels could not live up to that level of just sheer audience awe in the
Yeah.
theater, right?
That's
Like,
fair. That's
and
fair.
I think that negatively hurt them in a way that I don't think would happen today. Given where cinema is at with this kind of constant churn,
Uh,
I don't think they would be as critically panned
well,
today.
and I think the big reveal in Reloaded pissed off a lot of people that Neo wasn't the one. He's a happens within the system regularly. That the Matrix has planned for his anomaly every time he comes up into their system. So I think that pissed off a lot of people. Just to know that this guy was basically a godlike person at the end of the first Matrix, to find out, yeah, you're not even a god at this point. You're just a system glitch. And while you can do damage, we've compensated for your glitch at this point, and we've figured it out, and we've done it dozens of times at this point. I think that pissed off a lot of people. That really did. It really, because it kind of killed the momentum of the first movie in terms of like Neo's specialness, I guess
But
you
I
could
would
say.
say, rewatching the first one, they set that up. Like, there's a line from Morpheus who's like, "Yeah, there was the one, and you're the resurrection of the one," which is like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
they set it up, and it's a
yeah,
sci-fi. So that
yeah,
swerve is not so much a swerve as it is a slight left turn. You
yeah.
know,
Well, it wasn't a swerve. It was how they presented it, how they
true.
packaged it
Yeah, the
as
having it be a monologue from a
yeah,
character we'd never seen before.
yeah,
If it had come from
yeah.
maybe the Oracle or something, would have been more palatable.
Or even like Agent Smith, who comes to find that information and then just
Yeah,
reveals it to Neo, like,
something
hey,
like that. Yeah,
you're not as special as you think you are. Here's why,
yeah,
and tells him that, and it just, but at the same time, we find out that Neil still is powerful enough to resurrect Trinity, in that movie. Um, I think it kind of it pulled at their emotions way too hard, and it really upset people. So when they went into Revolution, I like Revolution. I'm gonna be frank with you. I like it.
yeah. There's some
I think it's a good movie.
like the
I think it's a
assault on Zion is
Oh
awesome.
God,
So
yeah,
cool. Those
yeah.
fucking huge mech machines they've got firing all those bullets. Dope. Dope movie.
But just knowing the sheer terror of, hey, there's millions of these machines. They're infinite amounts of them. They're just swarming in, and they're taking over this last human city, and you're just like, this is it. This is it. Like, Neo has to be the savior, right? But then Neo doesn't even believe he's the savior, right? And
Yeah.
so you're like, fuck. So what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? I thought it was a good movie. I thought the ending to it was great. I always knew that they were gonna do something again in the future, because they even tell you, like, will we see him again? She goes, I believe we will, you know. Um, but it just proves to you that even the Oracle knew, we grabbed his body, we plugged him into the back of the system. He's gonna be back around when we need him to.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll wait for the Keanu sans. Then
Yeah.
he'll come back.
But it kind of tears you. It's like, okay, so is he Zion? I mean, is he the machine's savior in this movie, or is he going to be, rebellious and be like, I'm not going to do that? Like, it's pulling me in. The trailer did pull me in to be like, okay, so what's going to be the direction of his story now? He obviously sees Trinity, and it sparks something. It literally sparks something there, his love or his emotions, and it awakens him probably in the real world. But yeah, I'm really interested to see what the direction of this story is. Like, what's the point of bringing us back? Something big has to be taking place, right?
Yeah.
Something big.
Should be fun. I'm really excited about it. Can't wait to see where they go. It's gonna be a fun time at the movies.
Here's the fucked up part. What if Trinity is the new anomaly that's causing issues within the Matrix, and he has to make a choice?
That's my thing is she's not real, and he has to come to grips with that she's gone.
Yeah.
And him coming to terms is like shit's gonna go down. All the humans are like cornered or whatever, and he's breaking down because she's not real, and like his memories are flooding back, and like he has to decide: do I stay asleep? Do I go back to the Matrix and just forget her, or do I live with that loss and be myself, like be Neo?
Kind of like WandaVision.
Similarly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the turn, like the final act's going to be him, I think, coming to terms with that, choosing to become Neo again. And that's when you see him riding on the motorcycle, just like crushing everything and just
Thing
being,
of- Yeah.
being fucking Neo, right? Like, And I think that's where they're going to go. Of course, I'm down to be very pleasantly surprised. So this just all
Yeah.
theories at this point.
Yeah, I can't. Which sister is it? Is it Lana Wachowski that's leading
Yes,
this
I
one?
think
Or
so.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I mean, I trust she's waited. She's had how many years now? 16 years since the previous one.
Yeah.
17 years now to really think out of a story that would make sense going forward. So yeah, I'm gonna give it the time of day. I'm excited about the trailer. I was very happy to see it. Plus, I think the music. We both said this. The music was great.
White Rabbit was an excellent
The
choice.
White Rabbit was a great song to play. But
There's
and
no
it makes
such
you
thing
wonder.
as too on the nose with that song.
No, but it makes you wonder why the fuck didn't they use it previously? Because they were so techno. It was all about EDM in the first
Yeah,
two
that wouldn't have
sequels,
fit.
right?
Now it
It wouldn't
does
have fit.
because we got the nostalgia trip with the 80s and 70s, but it
Yeah,
also fits thematically with the story.
and it's a visceral story. It's raw, right? That's
Yeah.
really what we're getting, a raw story with Neo. We're not going full kung fu fight. Everybody's kung
Yeah,
fu
we're not
fighting.
getting Morpheus in the shadows with his fucking rimless, glasses and everything,
Yeah,
like,
you're not getting propeller head, guys. Relax.
it's
Not
not that
not going.
crazy of a story.
Yeah.
It's more because we've been introduced to the world, like it's not a world building, it's a rebuilding.
Yep.
So it's gonna be a fun project. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what happens with it. Hopefully it does well at the theaters because I love sci-fi doing well because it means we get more dope sci-fi stories like The Foundation. I never thought we'd see that.
Right.
Like it's a weird story, like weird, and they're doing it, and apparently fairly competently. At least not if it's gonna light the world on fire. It doesn't seem to at least be a trash fire.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. But I
Should
really gotta
Netflix?
go pee.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap this bad boy
We
up
should probably
soon.
wrap it up, and we're right around an hour 20, hour 15, so
All right.
perfect amount of time. So of course, thanks everyone for watching. You can or listening. You can follow us individually at MrWartburg on Twitter. Fusion is at It's Mr. Fusion. Our links are in the description, at least on the YouTube side. If you're on the audio feeds, definitely drop a review or a follow, whatever the algorithm wants you to do when it comes to podcasts. If you're over on YouTube or if you're listening and want to watch on YouTube, we're at youtube.com/c/MrWartburg, Mr. Wartburg, because it's real German. And you can definitely follow us over there for the video version, where we actually have all the links there. Because podcast stuff gets weird with links on like RSS feeds. I don't want to toy with all that because spacing gets mucked up. Yeah, next week we're going to talk mostly about Ted Lasso's finale, hoping we have a couple of guests. We'll see what happens there. Fusion, any other closing thoughts?
No, man. I mean, like I said, go watch Sex Education. Great show. And in return, I'll go sit down and I'll watch Doom. I'll give Titans a try. How about that?
I would recommend Doom Patrol first. Do Doom Patrol.
I'll
Doom
catch
Patrol
up on
is
Doom
the
Patrol.
more universally actually good show.
I will do that then. I'll watch Doom Patrol.
Oh, what you got on Supernatural? Did you put it off?
Yeah, I haven't watched the last 2 episodes of season 1, man. I'm going to get there.
You're right when their
promise.
dad comes back.
I know.
Ah.
I'll catch up on Supernatural too.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. And Jerron, I know you were here. Thank you for hanging, my dude. And everyone, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Some Ted Lasso talk, where we're gonna talk Ted.